Sometimes a story of profound injustice is hidden in plain sight, tucked away in faded newspaper clippings and dry legal records. That's exactly what we're looking at today. We're going to peel back the layers on a court case from 1952, the case of Lula Mae Artes. This headline, Dixie Justice, it just screams off the page of the Pittsburgh Courier. This wasn't just a headline, it was a judgment. It captured the absolute shock and outrage that people felt across the country when they heard about the outcome of a truly brutal crime. So let's go to Carthage, North Carolina. It's a small town, but for a few days back in January 1952, it became the center of a trial that would really put the whole idea of justice on trial itself. You had 3 white soldiers accused of a horrific crime against a young black mother. And get this, the accused weren't just anybody. They were paratroopers, from the famous 101st Airborne Division. But despite the terrible crime, and despite their own signed confessions, the press reported that the verdict they received felt like nothing more than a gentle brush on the knuckles. Just 16 to 24 months, that's it. That was the sentence. For a crime that the prosecutor himself called one of the most heinous in the county's history. It's just unbelievable. So the big question is, how on earth did this happen? How does a case like this, with confessions and a terrified victim, end with a sentence that's basically a slap on the wrist? To really understand, we have to go back to the beginning, to the night it all went down. Okay, so picture this. It's August 18th, 1951. We're on a dark, lonely road near Carthage. This is where we first meet Lula Mae Artes, and it's where her life was changed forever. This is her, Lula Mae Artes. She was only 19 years old, already a mother of 2. And on this particular night, she was just walking home from church with a friend. Simple as that. But what happened next was anything but simple. It was a planned, terrifying ambush. The young man with her was Paul Williams, also 19. At the trial, he described how completely helpless he was, how the soldiers held him at bay, forced him to the ground while they dragged Mrs. Artes away. Let's just break down how calculated and cruel this was. See, this wasn't some random encounter. The soldiers were out there for a big military exercise, Operation Southern Pine, and they used their military training to create pure terror. They fired a rifle, they set off simulated hand grenades, they pinned Williams to the ground, Hitler style, that's how he described it in court, and then they took Mrs. Artes. And if that wasn't horrifying enough, there's another layer to this story that's just a gut punch, a really painful, deeply ironic twist. Think about that for a second. That's what the prosecutor told the jury. While Lula Mae Artes was being attacked by American soldiers on a road in North Carolina, her own husband, a soldier himself, was fighting in the Korean War. He was overseas fighting to protect the very country that was so utterly failing to protect his wife. I mean, the contrast is just brutal. The very institution her husband was serving, the one meant to keep the nation safe, offered his wife zero protection. In fact, its own members became her attackers. It is a complete and total betrayal. So, back to the courtroom. You've got this horrific crime, you've got signed confessions, the evidence seems strong. So, what in the world happened during that trial that led to such a shocking verdict? Well, the Army's own Criminal Investigation Division, the CID, they testified that the 3 soldiers gave signed confessions and that they were given freely without any pressure. But in court, the defense lawyers just flipped the script, claiming the whole thing was consensual, totally contradicting those confessions. And here's how they got away with it. The judge basically gave the jury an out. He laid out 5 possible verdicts for them to choose from. Now, the most severe was rape, which could have meant the death penalty. But the 4th option down the list was simple assault on a female. By picking that one, the jury got to deliver a guilty verdict, sure, but without any real serious consequences. And this was the jury that made that choice. 11 white men and 1 black man, Cardwell Campbell. They were out for less than 2 hours before they came back with that verdict, the one that sent shockwaves across the country. So after the headlines fade, after the soldiers go off to serve their incredibly short sentences, a really haunting question is left hanging in the air. What became of the woman at the very center of it all? The answer is, there is no answer. We just don't know. After this brief, brutal, violent moment in the national spotlight, Lula Mae Artes just vanishes. No more articles, no public records, nothing. Her story, which began with such violence just ends in this complete and total silence. The fact that she disappears from the historical record like that, it brings up a much bigger question. And strangely enough, a remarkable coincidence involving another woman's story really helps us explore it. You see, decades later, also in North Carolina, a woman named Lula Mae Artes passed away. Notice the slightly different spelling of the last name, Artis. Her life, which also started in the shadow of a historical trauma, was not forgotten. No, it was celebrated, documented, and preserved by her whole community. This Lula Mae Artes, her life also began connected to a high-profile trial involving her mother. But her story didn't end there. Her family moved to Wilson, North Carolina, and she built this full life. She became a beloved matriarch in her community. And when she passed away at 89, her life was celebrated and her legacy was honored and remembered. And when you put their stories side by side like this, it's just incredibly stark. Two women, almost the same name, both touched by the trauma of the justice system. For Lula Mae Artes, her story is just a void, an empty space. For Lula Mae Artes, her life is a recorded legacy of resilience. One was silenced, the other was remembered. And in the end, that's what this is all about. The story of Lula Mae Artes is about so much more than a single crime or a failed trial. It really forces us to ask ourselves a hard question about who we are and what we value. Whose stories do we choose to preserve, and whose do we just allow to fade away into silence?